The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors when I got the call. I was still groggy from surgery, my laptop perched awkwardly on the adjustable bed tray as I tried to keep up with work emails during my recovery. The screen displayed Marcus Sullivan, Director of Operations, when my phone lit up. "Sarah," Marcus's voice came through, oddly hesitant. "How are you feeling?" "Getting better," I replied, shifting slightly to ease the discomfort from my recent back surgery. "Doctor says I should be back in about 3 weeks, right on schedule with my medical leave paperwork." There was a pause, too long to be comfortable. "About that?" Marcus cleared his throat. "We've had to make some organizational changes. Your position has been filled." The words didn't register at first. I had been the senior project manager at Riverside Technologies for 9 years. I built our project management system from scratch, trained dozens of team members, and maintained a 98% on-time delivery rate for our software implementations. "I don't understand," I said carefully. "I'm on approved medical leave. My position is protected." "Sarah, you have to understand. My nephew James just graduated from business school. He needs the job, and frankly, the timing worked out well. We couldn't leave the position open indefinitely." I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. 3 weeks is hardly indefinite, Marcus, and James has no project management experience. "He's a quick learner," Marcus replied, his voice taking on that familiar, dismissive tone I'd heard him use with others, but never with me. "Look, we'll find something else for you when you're back. Maybe in customer support. James needs this opportunity more than you do. You understand, right?" I did understand. I understood perfectly. Marcus had used my back surgery, a procedure I'd delayed for 2 years because I was too busy managing critical projects, as an opportunity to install his nephew in my position. He was betting that between my recovery and the surprise announcement, I wouldn't fight back. "Of course," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I understand completely." "Great, I knew you'd be reasonable about this. Focus on getting better, and we'll figure something out when you're back." After he hung up, I stared at my laptop screen for a long moment. Then, very deliberately, I opened a folder I created 3 years ago, when Marcus first became Director of Operations. I'd named it Insurance, and I'd hoped I'd never need to use it. You see, I hadn't survived 9 years in corporate technology project management by being naive. I'd watched Marcus's pattern of behavior since he took over. The gradual replacement of experienced staff with friends and family members, the subtle manipulation of project numbers to take credit for others' successes, the careful cultivation of certain board members through golf games and private clubs. I documented everything, every irregular staffing decision, every manipulated project report, every instance where friends and family members were hired over more qualified candidates. I had emails, meeting notes, and timestamps. I even had recordings from project meetings where Marcus had explicitly taken credit for my team's work. But most importantly, I had proof of something Marcus thought no one had noticed: his systematic manipulation of project budgets to create a slush fund for consulting fees that went to shell companies owned by his friends. Opening my email, I composed a message to William Chen, the head of our board's audit committee. Subject: Request for Audit Review, Project Management Office. Dear Mr. Chen, I hope this email finds you well. In light of recent organizational changes at Riverside Technologies, I believe it's important to bring some concerning patterns to the audit committee's attention. I've attached preliminary documentation regarding irregular financial activities in the project management office over the past 3 years. I would appreciate the opportunity to present my findings in detail at Monday's board meeting. Best regards, Sarah Mitchell. I attached 3 key documents, just enough to establish the pattern but not enough to show my full hand. Then I hit send. Next, I forwarded Marcus's call to my personal email, thanking technology for automatic call recording, a feature I'd enabled after the first time I saw Marcus take credit for someone else's work in a client meeting. My phone buzzed almost immediately with a response from Mr. Chen. Ms. Mitchell, this is concerning indeed. I've reviewed your preliminary documents and would like you to present your findings to the full board on Monday at 10 a.m. Please prepare a comprehensive presentation. Regards, William Chen. I smiled slightly, then winced as the movement pulled at my stitches. Marcus had made 3 critical mistakes. First, he'd assumed that my medical leave made me vulnerable. In reality, it had given me uninterrupted time to organize my documentation and plan my response. Second, he'd chosen to tell me about my replacement over the phone rather than waiting for an in-person meeting where he could control the narrative. That recorded call would be very interesting to HR and our legal team, especially given our state's strong medical leave protection laws. But his biggest mistake, he'd forgotten that I was the one who designed our project management system. Every budget adjustment, every consulting payment, every project metric manipulation, it all left a trail in the system logs. A trail I had meticulously documented for 3 years. I spent the next few hours organizing my presentation for Monday. The hospital staff came and went, checking vitals and adjusting medications, probably wondering why their post-surgery patient was working so intently on her laptop. Around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from Amanda, my former assistant who still worked in the project management office. Amanda. Sarah, something weird is happening. James just showed up saying he's taking over your role. Marcus is having it transfer all your project files to him. What's going on? I took a deep breath before responding. It's being handled. But do me a favor, document everything that happens. And make sure you keep copies of any irregular requests. Amanda. Already doing it. This isn't right, Sarah. The whole team is furious. I appreciated their loyalty, but I didn't want anyone risking their jobs. Just keep your head down and do your job. Monday's board meeting will be interesting. Shortly after, my doctor came in for evening rounds. She frowned at my laptop. Ms. Mitchell, you're supposed to be resting. Just wrapping up some work emails, I said, closing the screen. How much longer do you think I'll need to stay? She checked my chart. If your recovery continues at this pace, we can probably discharge you Sunday afternoon. But you'll need to take it easy. No work for at least 3 weeks. I nodded, already planning how I would handle Monday's meeting. Don't worry, doctor. After Monday, I intend to take all the rest I need. That night, as I lay in the hospital bed listening to the quiet beeping of monitors, I thought about my team, good people who had worked hard, delivered results, and now watched as an inexperienced nephew was placed in charge of their projects. I thought about Marcus, probably celebrating his clever maneuver with James over dinner, confident that I would quietly accept whatever lesser role they deemed to give me. But mostly, I thought about Monday's board meeting. Marcus had no idea that while he'd been busy finding ways to insolve his nephew in my position, I'd been documenting every questionable decision, every financial irregularity, every abuse of power. He thought he was being clever, using my medical leave as cover for his nepotism. Instead, he'd given me exactly what I needed: uninterrupted time to organize my evidence and prepare my presentation. The next morning, I received another text from Amanda. Amanda. James is completely lost. He asked me what a sprint planning meeting was and didn't know we used Jira for project tracking. Marcus is trying to cover for him, but clients are starting to notice. I wasn't surprised. Our project management office handled millions of dollars in software implementation projects for major clients. It wasn't something you could learn through a business school degree and family connections. Around noon, my phone lit up with Marcus's name again. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to his message. Marcus, voicemail. Sarah, I hope you're feeling better. Listen, I know yesterday's news was probably a shock, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. When you're back, we'll find a good role for you, something less stressful, and I'd appreciate it if we could keep our conversation between us. No need to involve others in internal reorganization decisions. I saved the voicemail and added it to my evidence folder. Marcus was already trying to control the narrative, probably realizing that making staffing changes while an employee was on protected medical leave might not look good to HR or the board. But it was too late. The wheels were already in motion, and Marcus had no idea what was coming. Monday's board meeting wasn't just going to be about my position. It was going to expose years of financial manipulation and nepotism that had cost the company millions. As I continued preparing my presentation, I received an email from HR requesting documentation of my medical leave and return to work timeline. They were clearly trying to build a paper trail to justify Marcus's decision. I forwarded them all my properly filed medical leave paperwork, copied Mr. Chen on the response, and attached the recording of Marcus's call for good measure. The reply came within minutes. HR. Ms. Mitchell, please disregard the previous email. We are looking into this matter. I smiled. The first cracks were appearing in Marcus's plan. But this was just the beginning. Monday's board meeting would reveal just how badly he had underestimated me, and just how much evidence I had gathered over the years. As Friday evening approached, I received one final text from Amanda. Amanda, Marcus just called an emergency team meeting. He's trying to convince everyone that the changes are for the best and that you agreed to step down. Nobody's buying it. We all know how much you've done for this team. I appreciated their loyalty, but Monday wasn't just about me or my position. It was about exposing a pattern of behavior that had been damaging the company for years. Marcus had finally gone too far, and he was about to learn that actions have consequences. The weekend passed slowly in the hospital. I continued refining my presentation, organizing my evidence, and preparing for every possible counterargument. On Sunday afternoon, just as my doctor had predicted, I was discharged with strict instructions to rest and recover. But I had one more thing to do before Monday's meeting. One final piece of evidence that would make everything crystal clear. Because while Marcus had been busy arranging my replacement, he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I still had admin access to the project management system he never bothered to learn how to use properly. And the logs from the past 3 days of James' attempts to manage ongoing projects were going to be very interesting to the board indeed. Monday morning arrived with a flurry of messages and emails. I had barely finished my first cup of coffee when my phone started buzzing nonstop. Despite my doctor's orders to rest, I was up early, dressed in my sharpest suit, with the presentation materials ready on my laptop. The first message was from Amanda. Sarah, it's chaos here. James just accidentally deleted an entire project timeline in Jira. Marcus is trying to restore it from backup, but nobody remembers how to access the archive you set up. I took another sip of coffee, remembering how Marcus had dismissed my repeated requests to train more team members on system administration. Too technical, he'd said. We need to focus on business outcomes. The next message made me sit up straighter. It was from our biggest client, Meditech Solutions. Sarah, heard you're being replaced. Our implementation timeline is critical for FDA compliance. Need to discuss ASAP. David Thompson, CTO. Before I could respond, another message arrived from Amanda. Marcus just tried to reassure Meditech that everything's under control. James told them he has fresh ideas for managing their FDA timeline. David Thompson hung up on him. I checked the time, 8:45 a.m. The board meeting was at 10 o'clock a.m. Marcus was about to learn that actions have consequences, and some of them were arriving ahead of schedule. My phone rang, Marcus again. This time I answered. Sarah, he sounded stressed. We have a situation with Meditech. I need you to call David Thompson and smooth things over. Just tell him everything's fine and James will handle their project. I kept my voice professional. I'm on medical leave, Marcus. As you pointed out, James is now in charge of all projects. I'm sure he can handle it. Look, Marcus's voice took on an edge of desperation. I know you're upset about the changes, but we can't lose Meditech. They're threatening to pull their contract. That sounds challenging. I replied calmly. Unfortunately, I have a board meeting to prepare for. I'm sure you understand. A long pause. Board meeting. What board meeting? Did Mr. Chin tell you? I'm presenting to the board at 10 a.m. In fact, I should get going. I wouldn't want to be late. I could practically hear Marcus's mind racing. Sarah, wait. Maybe we should talk about this. I'm sure we can work something out. We already did work something out, Marcus. Remember? Your nephew needs the job more than I do. Those were your exact words, I believe. Would you like me to play the recording? Another pause, longer this time. Recording. Yes, from our call on Friday. I always record important business calls, a habit I developed after that incident last year when you took credit for my team's work in the client meeting. But we can discuss that at the board meeting. See you at 10. I ended the call and smiled. Marcus had just realized he wasn't the only one who could play office politics. At 9:30 a.m., I walked into Riverside Technologies headquarters. Heads turned as I made my way through the office. Everyone knew I was supposed to be on medical leave. Everyone had heard about James taking over my position. And now everyone was watching as I walked confidently toward the executive floor, presentation materials in hand. I passed the project management office and saw James at my old desk, surrounded by papers, frantically clicking through project dashboards with a panicked expression. Amanda caught my eye and gave me a subtle thumbs up. The elevator ride to the executive floor was quiet. When the doors opened, I saw Marcus pacing outside the boardroom, his normally immaculate appearance showing signs of stress. He rushed toward me. "Sarah, please, let's talk about this privately. Whatever issues you have, we can resolve them without involving the board." I looked at him calmly, like how you resolved my employment status without involving HR or legal, or how you resolved project budgets without involving finance. His face paled. "What are you talking about?" "We'll discuss it in the meeting, Marcus. Excuse me." I walked past him into the boardroom. Several board members were already seated, including Mr. Chen, who nodded in acknowledgement. I connected my laptop to the presentation screen and waited. At precisely 10 o'clock a.m., the room was full. Marcus sat as far from me as possible, alternating between checking his phone and shooting worried glances in my direction. James was conspicuously absent. Mr. Chen called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming. Ms. Mitchell has brought some concerning matters to our attention." "Sarah, please proceed." I stood, ignoring the twinge in my back. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I've prepared a presentation on some irregular patterns in project management operations over the past 3 years. Marcus interrupted immediately. "Before we begin, I should note that Ms. Mitchell is currently on medical leave and may not be thinking clearly due to medication." I smiled. "Thank you for your concern, Marcus. That reminds me, I should start with our recorded conversation from Friday. Mr. Chen, would you like to hear how Marcus replaced me with his nephew while I was recovering from surgery?" Before Marcus could object, I played the recording. His voice filled the room. "My nephew James just graduated from business school. He needs the job more than you do." The board members exchanged glances. Mr. Chen's expression darkened. "Marcus, you replaced a senior manager who was on protected medical leave with your nephew." "It's not. I was planning to find another role for Sarah," Marcus stammered. "It was a temporary solution." "Let's continue with the presentation," I said smoothly, clicking to the next slide. "This chart shows project budget allocations over the past 3 years. Notice these recurring consulting fees? They're all paid to companies that, interestingly enough, were incorporated by Marcus's former college roommates." Marcus's face went from red to white. "These are approved vendor relationships." "Indeed," I agreed. "Approved by you for services that were never actually delivered. Would you like to explain to the board why we paid $300,000 for project methodology consulting to a company that sells yacht parts?" The next hour was methodical devastation. I presented evidence of every manipulated budget, every questionable hire, every instance of Marcus taking credit for others' work. The project management system logs showed clear patterns of financial irregularities that he couldn't explain away. And finally, I concluded, here are the system logs from the past 3 days, showing multiple critical errors made by James Sullivan, who has no project management experience but now controls millions of dollars in client implementations, including, I should note, Meditech's FDA compliance project. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a message from Amanda. Meditech just escalated to their CEO. James tried to update their timeline and accidentally marked their entire project as canceled. I shared this update with the board. I should mention that losing the Meditech contract would cost the company approximately $4.2 million in annual revenue. Mr. Chen had heard enough. "Marcus, please wait outside while the board discusses this matter." Marcus stood, straightened his tie with shaking hands, and walked out. Through the glass walls of the boardroom, I could see him pacing, phone pressed to his ear. The board's discussion was brief but intense. When they called Marcus back in, Mr. Chen's voice was ice cold. "Marcus Sullivan, you are terminated effective immediately. Please clear out your office today. Our legal team will be reviewing all vendor contracts and staffing decisions made under your authority." Marcus slumped in his chair. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain everything." "Save it for the audit team," Mr. Chen replied. "Security will escort you out." As Marcus was led away, Mr. Chen turned to me. "Ms. Mitchell, the board would like to reinstate you as senior project manager with an expanded role overseeing operational integrity. However, we understand if you need time to recover first." I smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. I'll need the full 3 weeks of my medical leave. After all, we wouldn't want to violate any HR policies. Several board members actually chuckled at that. As the meeting adjourned, I gathered my materials, satisfied that justice had been served. Not through confrontation or emotional outbursts, but through careful documentation and a professional presentation of facts. On my way out, I passed the project management office one last time. James was already gone. His brief tenure as senior project manager ended before it really began. Amanda and the team were celebrating quietly, their relief evident. Marcus stood by the elevator, security waiting to escort him out, his career and reputation in shambles. He gambled everything on the assumption that I would quietly accept his decision, too weakened by surgery and too intimidated by his authority to fight back. He'd been wrong. As I walked past him, he spoke quietly. "I didn't think you'd do this." I stopped and turned. "No, Marcus, you didn't think at all. That was your problem." The elevator doors closed on his shocked face, and I walked out of the building, ready to finally focus on my recovery. After all, I had 3 weeks of medical leave to enjoy, properly approved and protected this time. The 3 weeks of medical leave passed more quickly than I expected. Between physical therapy sessions and rest, I kept in touch with Amanda, who provided regular updates about the aftermath of Marcus's departure. "The audit team has taken over the entire conference room," she texted one morning. "They're going through every project budget from the past 3 years. You should see their faces when they find another one of Marcus's consulting contracts." I wasn't surprised. Marcus had been clever, but not clever enough to hide his tracks completely. The system logs I had preserved gave the auditors a clear trail to follow. Meditech, our biggest client, had calmed down after Mr. Chen personally called their CEO to explain the situation. They agreed to continue their contract on one condition: I would personally oversee their FDA compliance project upon my return. 2 days before my scheduled return, I received a call from Mr. Chen. "Sarah, I hope you're recovering well," he began. "I wanted to discuss your role when you return." I settled into my home office chair, curious about what was coming. "The audit has revealed systemic issues beyond just Marcus's department," he continued. "We need someone to oversee a complete operational overhaul. The board would like to create a new position, Chief Operations Officer, and we'd like you to take it." I took a moment to process this. That's quite a step up from Senior Project Manager. "You've demonstrated exactly the kind of integrity and attention to detail we need," Mr. Chen replied. "Plus, you already have the trust of our key clients and staff. The salary, of course, would be commensurate with the role." The number he quoted made me glad I was sitting down. "I'd be honored," I said. "But I have one condition." "Name it." "I want to restructure the project management office first. There are good people there who were overlooked under Marcus's leadership." "Done," Mr. Chen agreed. "We trust your judgment, and Sarah, thank you for bringing this to our attention. You saved the company from more than just a few irregular contracts." When I returned to the office the following Monday, the atmosphere had changed completely. The fear and tension that had characterized Marcus's leadership were gone. Instead, there was a sense of optimism and renewal. Amanda met me at the entrance, barely containing her excitement. "You won't believe what's happened since you've been gone. The audit team found over $2 million in questionable contracts. And guess what? 3 of Marcus's consulting companies were just shell corporations that all led back to his brother-in-law." I smiled, letting her catch me up as we walked to my new office, considerably larger than my old one, and with a view of the city. "What happened to James?" I asked, though I could guess. Amanda grinned. "Left the same day as Marcus. Apparently, business school doesn't prepare you for actual business. Oh, and the team got together and got you something." She handed me a small package. Inside was a plaque that read, "Never underestimate someone on medical leave." My first act as COO was to call a department meeting. The project management team gathered in the main conference room, joined by representatives from other departments affected by the audit. First, I began, "I want to thank everyone who kept things running during these changes. It hasn't been easy, but you've shown incredible professionalism." I saw several people sit up straighter, pride replacing the uncertainty of the past few weeks. "Second, we're going to be making some changes. Good changes." I clicked on my presentation. "Every project manager will receive proper training on our systems. No more gatekeeping of information. We're implementing a new transparency policy for all project budgets. And most importantly, we're creating clear paths for advancement based on merit, not relationships. The energy in the room was palpable. These were things the team had wanted for years, but that Marcus had always blocked. Finally, I continued, I'm pleased to announce several promotions that are long overdue. I began listing names, talented team members who had been passed over repeatedly in favor of Marcus's friends and family. Amanda was promoted to senior project manager, her experience and dedication finally recognized. Others received similar acknowledgments of their skills and contributions. After the meeting, Mr. Chen stopped by my office. The board is impressed with your restructuring plan, he said, especially the new oversight protocols for vendor contracts. No one will be able to pull what Marcus did again. I nodded. How's the legal team doing with those shell companies? Marcus and his brother-in-law will be required to repay all fraudulent contracts, he replied with satisfaction. And they'll be lucky if that's all that happens. The SEC is quite interested in some of their other business dealings. As he left, I received one final text from Amanda. Marcus just updated his LinkedIn. He's now seeking new opportunities. Good luck with that after the SEC investigation hits the news. I closed my laptop and stood by the window, looking out at the city. In just a few weeks, everything had changed. Marcus had tried to take advantage of my medical leave, assuming I would be too weak or distracted to fight back. Instead, he had given me exactly what I needed: time to organize evidence and present it properly. His nephew had needed the job more than me, he'd said. Now neither of them had a job, while I had been promoted to COO. Sometimes justice works out perfectly on its own. The next few months would be busy with restructuring and implementing new policies. But for now, I sat down at my desk, opened my project management system, and began reviewing the Meditech implementation timeline. After all, I had promised to oversee it personally. And I always kept my promises, something Marcus had never understood. As I worked, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. Marcus had tried to push me out while I was at my most vulnerable. But in doing so, he had only proven why I was indispensable. Sometimes the best revenge isn't plotting or scheming. It's simply being so good at what you do that trying to replace you becomes someone else's biggest mistake. 1 year later, I stood at the podium during Riverside Technology's annual shareholder meeting, presenting our operational results for the year. The numbers spoke for themselves. Project delivery rates were up 40%, client satisfaction was at an all-time high, and revenue growth had exceeded all projections. And finally, I concluded, I'm pleased to announce that our operational integrity program has become an industry standard, with 3 major competitors adopting our transparency protocols. The applause was gratifying, but what really mattered was what those numbers represented: a complete transformation of company culture, from one of nepotism and hidden dealings to one of merit and transparency. After the presentation, Mr. Chen approached me with a smile. Quite a difference from last year's meeting, he said. Have you seen the latest industry news? I had. Marcus's legal troubles had finally concluded, resulting in substantial fines and a ban from serving as an officer in any publicly traded company. His nephew James had returned to business school, presumably to learn what he should have known before trying to take my position. But I didn't dwell on their fate. Success, as I'd learned, was the best response to those who underestimate you. Later that afternoon, I had a meeting with Amanda, now thriving in her role as senior project manager. She was leading the Meditech implementation, which had not only met but exceeded all FDA compliance requirements. Remember when Marcus said you weren't good under pressure? She asked with a grin. Meditech just signed a 3-year contract extension. They said they've never had better project management. I smiled, remembering that day in the hospital when everything could have gone so differently. If I had accepted Marcus's decision, if I hadn't documented everything, if I had let fear override my professional judgment. But I hadn't. Instead, I had turned a moment of vulnerability into an opportunity for truth to come to light. My phone buzzed with a message, a LinkedIn notification. Marcus had finally found a new position, middle management at a small company, a far cry from his former director role. He had sent me a connection request. I clicked ignore and turned back to my work. Some connections weren't worth maintaining. The day ended with a team celebration. We had just completed our largest project rollout to date, on time and under budget. As I looked around at the faces of my colleagues, I saw something that had been missing during Marcus's tenure: genuine pride and satisfaction in their work. Walking to my car that evening, I passed the spot where security had escorted Marcus out a year ago. He had tried to use my medical leave as an opportunity to install his nephew in my position. Instead, he had given me the perfect chance to expose years of misconduct and transform the company. My back had healed completely now, the surgery a success. Sometimes I thought about how Marcus had assumed my medical leave made me vulnerable. He hadn't realized that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the quietest response is the most powerful. The next morning, I received an email from a business journal requesting an interview about our company's turnaround. They were particularly interested in how we had transformed our corporate culture and implemented new integrity measures. I thought carefully about my response. This wasn't about personal vindication or exposing past wrongs. It was about showing how proper corporate governance and merit-based leadership could transform an organization. "I'd be happy to discuss our journey," I wrote back, "particularly how we've created an environment where talent and integrity matter more than connections." As I sent the email, Amanda poked her head into my office. "You're going to want to see this," she said, handing me a tablet. On the screen was a job posting from one of our competitors. They were looking for a new operations director. The current one, Marcus's brother-in-law, had been let go after an internal audit revealed irregularities in their vendor contracts. I handed the tablet back to Amanda. "Looks like some lessons have to be learned the hard way." She grinned. "Good thing we learned ours the right way." I nodded, turning back to my work. The past year had taught me something valuable. True success isn't about getting even or proving others wrong. It's about being so good at what you do that attempts to undermine you only end up highlighting your value. Marcus had thought he was ending my career that day in the hospital. Instead, he had inadvertently launched me into a position where I could make real, lasting change. Sometimes the best response to being underestimated is simply to rise.